Welcome to the Gas Pump Simulator project. This project shows how to generate the controls on a Visual Basic form using code when the program first starts executing instead of using the design mode in Visual Studio. The project also uses multiple forms that pass data between them using a module. Your job for this project is not to write the program, but to provide written documentation for the program. Topics covered in the video include program and project documentation, a sample execution of the program, the design of the program using a main form, 3 subforms, and an interconnecting module, instructions on how to build the project using files supplied on the class website, and a description of the code. The gas pump program is a simulation showing a gas station and a gas pump. The customer deposits cash at the store, selects a fuel grade, 87, 93, or diesel, and starts pumping. If the pumping is stopped before the amount of deposit is reached, the refund amount is displayed. The pump needs to be cleared before another sale can occur. Additional menu options are available to edit the prices, view the record of sales, and a help menu showing us how to use the program. The gas pump project is a documentation task. All of the code is given to make the program work. It is your job to go through the code and document each form, subform, and how they interrelate. Documentation also must include information on the code for each subroutine. Let's start a transaction. Deposit $5. Select 87 octane. Look at the price per gallon. It shows $2.49. Start the delivery. There it goes. Fuel is pumping, and we can see the gallons being delivered and the charge for making its way to $5. Ready for another customer? The sales clerk clicks the clear button. The pump is reset, the deposit amount is zeroed out, and the change due is cleared. This time, let's deposit $10, but we won't use all of our deposit. Select 93 octane and stop the pump after 1.8 gallons. The amount of the sale this time is $4.92. The customer gets $5.08 in change. Click the clear button to complete the sale. There's a menu bar at the top of the window. It shows File, Edit, View, and Help. The Help menu gives credit to the author and the creator of the gas pump clip art, a brief explanation of what is in the program, and instructions on how to use the program to simulate a fuel purchase. Click OK to exit the About form. The View menu item shows the amount of the current sale and the total amount of both sales. So far, we sold $5 and $4.92 for a total of $9.92. Click OK to exit the sales report. The Edit menu gives the store the option of changing the prices of the 2 grades of gasoline and diesel using the 3 text boxes. Let's change the price of regular to $2.59 and the price of super to $2.79 and the price of diesel to $3.09. When the Accept button is clicked, we can see that the sign over the store has been updated. If the Cancel button would have been clicked, the changes would not have been saved. The File menu has a submenu item, Exit. Clicking this menu item ends the program. One last thing to notice is the small comment at the lower right side of the window. There is a comment that states the gas pump image is from www.clipartbest.com. Since I wrote the program, I know that this is a label and not a button, but let's click it anyway to see what happens. Wow, a browser window is opened up, bringing up www.clipartbest.com. Something in the code must have made that happen. So far, we see that we have a main form and a menu at the top. The Help menu activates the About form. The View menu item activates the sales report. The Edit menu item opens a form that allows us to change the price of the gasoline and diesel. The File menu has a sub-menu item so that we can exit the program. Each of these subforms are called modal. which means that when they are active, nothing can happen in the main form. We can't go and click any of the buttons. We can't go modify any of the text boxes until the subform closes. This is called a modal form. Windows systems also have a modeless way of opening a form. If you open up a form as modeless, then both the main form and the subform can be active at the same time, and you can provide inputs to both. Are you ready to create the GasPump project? Yes! This is done in two parts. Part 1 is going to be to copy all of the image files from the website onto your computer in a folder on your desktop called GasPump. Part 2 is going to be to create the Visual Basic project and then copy all of the code from the website into your project. You're very lucky on this one, I guess, because all of the code is already there for you. All you need to do is to put it into the correct locations in Visual Basic, and then it should run. Are you ready? You can get to the files either by clicking the link on Canvas or going directly to program-info.net/vb/downloads/vb-gaspump/images. Now, have to watch the capitalization there because VB is capitalized, and also the G and the P in GasPump and the I in images. To get the images from the class website to your desktop, click on the link on Canvas to say images. I can see I have 4 images here, and there's a set of instructions which I don't need to copy, but it doesn't hurt. Resize your web browser so that you can see both the desktop and the web browser. Go to the desktop and create the folder called GasPump. To do that, right-click on the desktop, say New, Folder, and name it GasPump. For each of these 4 images, click on the image to display the image. Then go to the image and drag it into the folder. Click the back button, select the second image, take it and drag it into the folder. Click the back button, get the third image, take it, drag it into the folder, click the back button, get the last image, take it, drag it into the folder. One of the things I want to do now is to make sure that I got all 4 images in my folder. Double click the folder. That is going to bring up the list of the images. I see 1, 2, 3, 4. I got them. One of the things you have to make sure that you do not do is to try to take the link to the image and place it into the folder. If you do that, then you'll end up with a link in the folder instead of the actual image itself. There, see right there, I did it. Now I have a link, but not the image. In part 2, we'll create the Visual Basic project and use the code that's available on the website. You can either get the code from the Canvas class website, or you can go directly to program-info.net/vb/downloads/vb-gaspump/code. Click the link on Canvas to bring up the code. I'm going to resize the windows so I can have room for the web page that has the code. Also, Visual Studio. Start up Visual Studio. Start a new project. Make sure it says Visual Basic Windows Forms Application. I'm going to call this project GasPump. Okay. I really don't care what this form looks like because everything there is going to get replaced by the code that I'm going to import from the web page. Looking at the web page, I have Form 1, Module 1, Form About, Form Edit Prices, and Form Sales Report. So I'm going to need 3 forms and the module. I already have Form 1. View, Code, delete all this code, and I want to replace it with the code that's on the website. Click on Form 1. Say Control A, select all, Control C, copy. Go back over to Visual Basic, Control V, paste. Pretty cool. Okay. Back up over here. The next one I'm going to do is Module 1. So, Project, Add Module. It already says Module 1. That's cool. Add. Delete all the code here. Bring up the code from the website. Control A, select all. Control C, copy. Go back over to Visual Basic. Control V. Now I have the code for Module 1. Back over to the website. Form About. Project. Add Windows Form. I'm going to name this FRM Form About. Add. Select the code, view code, go back over to the website, Control A, select all, Control C, copy. Take all of this, delete it, Control V, paste. Go back over to the website. Next one is Form Edit Prices. Back over to Visual Studio. Project, add Windows Form. The name FRM Edit Prices. Add. View code. Back to the website, Control A. Select all, Control C, copy. Back over to Visual Studio. Delete everything there, Control V, paste. Back to the website. The last one is going to be Form Sales Report. Go back over to Visual Basic. Project, add Windows Form, name, FRM Sales Report, add. View, code, delete everything here because I'm going to replace it with everything here. Control A, select all, Control C, copy, back to Visual Basic, Control V. I think I have everything. So let's start and see what happens. Ah, it worked. Let's try it out. $5, 87 octane, start. And I got $5 worth of with gasoline. Help, that showed. Okay. View, so far I've only sold $5. That's fine. Edit, I can change the price on something. Let's make this $2.59. Say accept, and right there in my sign it says $2.59. Clear, that cleared out my current sale. File, exit, that one worked too. Before going into too much detail about how the program actually works, I want to discuss how it got from version 1.0 all the way up to version 3.0. Version 1.0 was created with a single form. It had the gas pump and it had the ability to start and stop and displaying gas. Version 2.0 has a menu and it has the multiple forms for editing the prices, for viewing the amount of sales, and help and about menu. It also has the store and the sign above the store, which can display the prices of the various grades of gasoline and diesel. This project, along with version 1.0, was created with the Visual Basic Designer mode, where I took all of the controls, such as the buttons and the labels and the forms, and dragged those from the toolbox onto the form. I figured it might be difficult for a lot of students, or certainly take a lot of work to recreate all those buttons and forms. In version 3.0, I created everything inside the code to where all of these controls were generated when the program first started running. A module can be used when you need to share data, subroutines, or functions between the different parts of the program. For example, in the GasPump project, the fuel prices are stored in module1.vb and can be viewed by any of the forms. The fuel prices are used by Form 1 when computing the price of a sale. The menu edit form needs to be able to view and update the fuel prices. Both forms have access to the same data. If this data were not shared, then any edits by menu edit would not be available to Form 1. The keyword public is used to allow these pieces of data to be seen outside the module. If these items of data were listed as private or the keyword public were left off, the data could not be seen by the other forms. All of the controls, such as text boxes, labels, and buttons in version 3.0 are generated when the program first runs as opposed to using the design mode. It is much easier to figure out where to place controls on the form using the design mode. I created a project and called it version 2.0 using the design mode to drag and drop the controls on the form. When I like the layout, I use the sizes and locations of the controls when writing the code for version 3.0. For example, the size on the main form is 705 by 584, and the text property for the title bar is GasPump Simulator version 2.0. The location and size for the GasPump image is 177, 28 and 485 by 507. The location and size for the Start-Stop button is 310, 312 and 198 by 36. I wrote down all the important properties for each control. The design mode in version 2.0 did a lot of work for us as far as remembering secretly creating all the code and put each control on the form and remembering the initial properties. All this work needs to be done by the programmer if we want to generate the controls dynamically when the program first starts running. Here's a look at the code for version 3.0. Form 1 starts off with some local variables that would be used to keep track of the amount paid, price per gallon, and gallons dispensed. There is another variable of type Boolean that is used to make sure the customer selects a fuel type before the Start-Stop button is enabled. The next set of variables are placeholders for the various controls that would be placed on the form. Just because we do a dim BTN87 as button, that does not mean a button will show up on the form. We still need to write a lot of code to make that happen. We'll see this code in a little bit. The font objects are used later. We need to determine the address of the GasPump folder located on the desktop. Each person who uses Windows can have their own desktop. An environment variable called home path identifies your login. We can get the address of the GasPump folder by concatenating the strings for home path and /desktop/gaspump/. Concatenation means putting two things together. The ampersand operator is used to concatenate two strings. The Form 1 load event is executed when the program first starts running. Just to make things easier to code, the Form 1 load subroutine just calls a lot of other subroutines, which then create all the controls for the GasPump main form. One more subroutine is called clear the pump, which initializes the settings for the simulated pump. This subroutine is also called when the clear button is clicked. It is better to write this code only once and place it in a subroutine that gets called twice than to write the code twice for each time it is needed. If we change how the pump is cleared, we only need to fix the code in one place. You can look over the code in the Clear the Pump subroutine and see all the things that get initialized. There are only a few things I want to point out. A timer is used to cause gallons and sale amount to go up when simulating the delivery of fuel. We need to disable the timer to stop any fuel delivery when the clear button is clicked. Also, the Start-Stop button is disabled. We don't want to pump fuel until after the customer has deposited some money at the store and a fuel type has been selected. When it is disabled, it is grayed out. The three buttons for fuel selection call a subroutine to set the variable used for price and update the label on the GasPump image to show the current price. Watch it happen. The Start-Stop button is used to either start the fuel delivery or stop it. If the timer is enabled, then fuel is being delivered. Clicking the Start-Stop button disables the timer and then stops fuel delivery. The else statement gets executed if the timer is not enabled. In this case, clicking the Start-Stop should cause the gas pump to start pumping fuel by enabling the timer. Seems like something might be missing here. I think I remember something in the Clear the Pump subroutine that disables this button. Somewhere else in the program enables the button after money has been deposited at the store and a fuel type has been selected. Then we can actually pump some fuel. Here is the code for the timer tick event. This code gets executed several times a second when the timer is enabled. If the cell reaches the amount of deposit, the timer is disabled and the fuel delivery stops. If the timer is still running, each tick of the timer causes the cell amount to go up by 1 penny. The gallons delivered are computed, and both of these are displayed using the labels located on the gas pump image. Here is the code that activates the default web browser when the label referencing the clip art for the gas pump is clicked. How about the menu items? Clicking the Edit menu creates a new instance of Form Edit Prices. The Edit Prices.show dialog code displays Form Edit Prices as modal. The main form is disabled and cannot take any inputs until Form Edit Prices form is closed. Form Edit Prices can change the price of gas and diesel, so we need to update the display when returning to the main form. The menu items for Sales Report and About just display their respective forms. Here comes the collection of subroutines that initialize the main form and create all the controls on the form. Form Initialization subroutine sets the size of the gas pump form and sets the text on the title bar. The Add Pictures subroutine places the pictures for the gas pump image and the store image on the form. The image location property tells us to find the image in the folder on the desktop named GasPump. Calling me.controls.add pick GasPump is needed to place the picture on the form. Without this line, we just have all the information for the image sitting in the program's memory, but it doesn't make it to be displayed on the form. Similar code is repeated for the store image. The code for adding buttons needs an extra line. We need to connect the click event to a subroutine. Here's the code that would be created by Visual Basic's design mode. Notice the handles btn87.click at the end. Since we're not using the design mode, we need to make the same thing happen if we want any code to be executed when the user clicks a button. Here is a line of code that connects the click event to our subroutine. Add handler button87.click, address of button87_click. That subroutine was already discussed earlier. Similar code is needed for the text boxes and the label for the clip art credit that can be clicked to bring up the web browser. Here is the code to create the timer. The interval for each tick is set to 10. When the timer is enabled, it will tick every 10 milliseconds or 100 times a second. After seeing most of the code, the menu items are fairly easy. It starts off by adding a new menu strip and then adding File, Edit, View, and Help to the menu strip. Exit is a submenu item and is added as a drop-down item to the File menu. This finishes the instructions on how to build the gas pump project. It is now your job to document the program by completing the lab report that is available on the class website. I hope you enjoyed seeing a project that is a little bigger than just one form, has a module that shares data between the forms, and has a menu with items that can be selected instead of just clicking a button. Have a great day with Visual Basic.